Imagine this. You stand on the edge of a precipice, the ground beneath your feet trembles, and the wind carries a whisper that feels both ancient and urgent. Behind you, an immense tree towers, its branches twisting like skeletal arms toward a storm-choked sky. Its leaves quiver in restless anticipation, as if they sense a transformation imminent. What should be a testament to life, as triumphant reach feels, instead like a grotesque paradaloft, yet unmoored, majestic yet hollow. You glance down at the gnarled roots snaking across barren rock, stripped of soil, exposed to the merciless elements. Carl Jung's words echo in your mind. No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. What will you see if you lean over the edge? The answer isn't comforting. You might confront the pain you thought you had outgrown. You might recognize patterns of self-sabotage mirrored in the fractured earth. You might be forced to wrestle with aspects of yourself you've long avoided. Yet, remaining on the surface, on the brittle edge of accomplishment, is no safer. Without roots anchored in honest self-confrontation, every breeze threatens to uproot you. Hell not as a destination, but as a metaphor for the raw, uncharted terrain of our own depths. Which path leads to resilience? Which yields lasting growth? Can you see the hell beneath you not as a trap, but as a crucible one that forges strength and authenticity? If the tree's towering height depends on the roots, dive into the abyss. Perhaps your next step must be downward, toward the heart of your own hidden depths. Only then might you pierce the heavens with branches that bear the weight of truth. You feel the tension tighten in your chest, as if the universe itself holds its breath, waiting for your decision. The air grows electric as you steel yourself for the descent. What awaits in the darkness promises not comfort, but transformation and the promise of a growth that truly reaches skyward. The storm clouds overhead swirl with promise and peril, reflecting the dual nature of the journey ahead. The places we dread to explore. Grief we've buried, guilt we've rationalized, desires we've denied. What if true elevation demands we descend first? How did such a proud giant come to stand so vulnerable? How can anything aspire to touch the heavens when its foundation is ravaged, bone dry, and inching toward oblivion? You feel your heart quicken as you realize the paradox. Growth demands ascent, yet without depth, ascent is folly. You've chased achievements, titles, accolades, moments of fleeting triumph feats, new leaf sprouting higher than the last. But have you ever questioned the soil from which you rose? Do you know the darkness below, the subterranean currents that fuel your upward thrust? Perhaps you flinched at shadows in the corner of your mind, voices of doubt telling you that something vital is missing. You shoo them away, equating silence with strength. Yet beneath that denial lurks a void, an abyss awaiting acknowledgement. What if the very act of reaching for greatness without confronting your inner abyss is not bravery, but a kind of slow self-betrayal? Consider the tightrope performer who dazzles the crowd, balanced high above the ground. The audience sees grace and poise. They don't witness the trembling knees, the beads of sweat, the memory of every gust that nearly sent her tumbling. The facade of mastery blinds them to the fractures in the rope, the fissures in the performer's confidence, and when the moment of reckoning comes, the fall is swift and merciless. Isn't this the story of so many lives? We build facades of happiness-smiling selfies, LinkedIn proclamations, weekend getaways, while within, the roots of our being coil around grief, regret, and unspoken fear. We push ourselves towards success, as if motion alone guarantees meaning, yet every inch we climb without tending the darkness below carries the risk of collapse. Have you ever paused to ask, what have I left unexamined in the shadows of my psyche, in the corners of my relationships, in the silent chambers of my soul? As you stare at the tree's exposed roots, you realize that growth and suffering are inseparable twins. The wind picks up, and you feel a pull downward, a vertigo that invites you to peer into the chasm beneath the tree. Here, on this jagged cliff, you face a choice. Continue to ascend, armoring yourself against discomfort, or dare the descent into your private underworld. Can you embrace the darkness without being consumed by it? You step back from the precipice, mind aflame with questions. What lies beneath your own foundation? And are you ready to confront it? You feel the weight of that choice lingering in your chest as you descend, each step into darkness reverberating with the echoes of forgotten truths. There is a tremor in the earth, subtle yet insistent, as though the world itself protests your intrusion into its secret underworld. From childhood, you were taught that success is measured by visible milestones. Grades on a report, promotions in an office, the approving nod of your peers. Society exalts the summit while fame, status while shunning the notion that you must first confront the darkness within. You may believe your ambitions are noble, but beneath the polished veneer lies an instinctual drive, jealousy, competitiveness, desire for domination. You chase goals only to find them hollow, and your efforts fuel fresh cravings. You learn to treat discomfort as an enemy, deploying pharmaceuticals, self-help mantras, or dopamine-triggering indulgences to maintain a sense of equilibrium. Yet these palliatives deepen the wound, insulating you from the vital feedback that could prompt real change. If roots cannot sense the quality of soil, how can they adjust, nourish, and grow strong? Without recognizing the machinery of desire, you become a prisoner of perpetual dissatisfaction. Nations pursue progress, economic growth, technological supremacy, cultural dominance while neglecting their moral and psychological foundations. Have you seen the consequences? Polarized politics fueled by collective shadows, environmental collapse provoked by the refusal to reckon with greed, mental health crises born of the neglect of communal roots. You have come to believe that growth is a one-way path upward, a linear ascent of tidy accomplishments, neatly packaged virtues. But true growth is spiral-shaped. It moves upward only by circling back through the depths, gathering nutrients from the past's fallen leaves. The roots, though tangled, still reach. They yearn for nourishment, for truth to sustain them. The hidden problem is also a hidden promise, that through this excavation, something vital lies waiting to emerge. But before that promise can be realized, you must acknowledge why the issue exists. Face the philosophical and psychological forces that shaped it, and prepare for the unseen consequences that will test every fiber of your resolve. The journey downward has only just begun. Jung, Nietzsche, Franklich in their waypoints to the same diagnosis. You must engage with the subterranean realm of your being or face collapse. The uprooted tree grows unstable, and when it falls, the damage is catastrophic. There is no cosmic blueprint dictating how you should confront your darkness. These wounds fester beneath the rhetoric of progress, erupting as disillusionment, extremism, and social decay. Yet mainstream discourse demands moving forward, ignoring the unresolved chorus of the oppressed. The hidden problem reveals itself not as a flaw to be fixed, but as a terrain to navigate. The soil here is thick with old fears, half-truths, and the ashes of discarded dreams. You will have to roll up your sleeves and dig, fearless, patient, and for only when you understand the psychological and philosophical roots of your dilemma can you prepare to confront the consequences that lie ahead. The work is neither quick nor comfortable, but the only alternative is to remain a monument to vanity, destined to be toppled by the storm. The psychological parallel is stark. You demand yourself to advance without feeling, without integrating pain, without forgiveness, and both you and society teeter on the brink. You must choose day after day to embrace or evade the depths. The anguish of that freedom is daunting, like standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into the void of your own potential. But evading the choice does not relieve your responsibility. It intensifies the burden of living inauthentically. The more you reach, the more you crave, and the more the chasm between roots and sky widens. Nietzsche would urge you to own these impulses, to integrate them rather than suppress them. Beneath every outburst is a neglected root, demanding water, recognition, compassion, acceptance. You keep asking how to fix the effects. Better communication, stress management, more discipline. But these are mere bandages, ignoring the hemorrhage below. Only by embracing the totality of your nature can you forge an authentic self, rather than a brittle projection of societal ideals. Inadvertently, you internalized a narrative. Ascend at all costs, for beauty lies in the pinnacle. You're taught to fear the root-bound self, as though descent equals defeat. Yet the hidden problem is not that darkness exists, but that you fear its transformative power. You mistake descent for doom, when in truth it is the only path to integration. Until you probe the roots, they will twist with resentment, envy, and self-doubt nargies that will threaten a violent rupture, rather than allow a gentle bloom. The soil of introspection was deemed unnecessary, even taboo. Don't dwell on your problems, you heard. Focus on the solution. But what if the solution hides within the problem itself? Yet you press on. driven by a nameless compulsion to understand why so many remain perched precariously on life's precipice, afraid to explore the subterranean currents that feed their growth. The answer lies not in the sky, but in the hidden problem beneath your feet, the unacknowledged roots of your psyche, tangled with impulses and beliefs you inherited, adopted, and then abandoned to rot. Consider how you learned to climb. Psychology casts a spotlight on this avoidance. Carl Jung described the shadow, the parts of yourself you disown, the instincts and memories deemed unacceptable by your conscious mind. You learned to bury these aspects deep, convinced that light and virtue thrived only in what you show the world. But shadows grow restless. They will not be ignored. When you refuse to acknowledge shame, rage, or fear, those forces morph into distortions. Envy that poisons relationships, anger that erupts in unexpected bursts, anxiety that gnaws at your sleep. You become a house with a locked basement. You can't enjoy the view upstairs when the foundation trembles with unseen unrest. Philosophy offers a parallel diagnosis. Friedrich Nietzsche cracked open the human condition with unsettling candor. We craft masks of morality to conceal our will to power. Arthur Schopenhauer's bleak assessment cuts deeper still. Life is suffering, the relentless striving of the will that can never fully be satisfied. Aldous Huxley added another layer. Culture anesthetizes us with distractions, from the rush of consumerism to the numbing glow of screens. Jean-Paul Sartre's existential lens brings a final, piercing truth. You are condemned to freedom. In that swirling vortex where psychology meets philosophy, societal forces conspire to keep you above ground, a spectacle rather than a fully realized being. Perhaps you've glimpsed this unrest in your own life. Moments when a trivial insult reduces you to rage, when a minor setback triggers a spiral of shame, when camaraderie dissolves into envy. This hidden dynamic extends far beyond your personal sphere. Societies repeat the same pattern on a grand scale. The roots of civilization twist around buried traumas, colonial violence, economic exploitation, systemic injustice. It is this hidden problem of fear of hell, of the internal and collective abyss that has become the silent architect of your struggles. As you stand on this threshold, you sense the gravity pulling you deeper. And yet, even now, in the thick of this underground labyrinth, you feel a stirring of possibility, a faint pulse that echoes from the core of your being. You pick your way through the subterranean tangle, each root a serpentine whisper of memory, each stone a fragment of untold story. Here, in the dim glow of your inner torchlight, you sense the true power of the hidden problem. It does not simply distort your life in isolated moments. It weaves itself into the very fabric of your experience, shaping how you perceive reality, how you feel, and how you act. What if every judgment you've made, every fear you've nurtured, you crave validation, yet sabotage praise with self-deprecating jokes? When conflict arises, you either lash out with fury or retreat into silence, depending on which root fear dominates that moment. Cultural narratives about success, beauty, and morality embed themselves in the psyche of millions. These mental autopilots, honed over millennia, protect you from overload, but also blind you to the present moment. Every viral outrage reveals a festering wound, a story of betrayal, injustice, fear that refuses to be ignored. Each day you fail to surface these roots, they twist tighter, constricting your capacity for genuine connection and authentic growth. Inevitably, pressure builds an existential storm gathering force. Unseen consequences metastasize into crisis: personal burnout, relationship collapse, corporate scandal, societal polarization. The tree that once seemed a monument to aspiration becomes an omen of impending collapse. Yet in that same darkness, you catch a glimmer of something else. The promise of clarity, the surge of energy that comes when a hidden pressure is released, the dawn that follows acknowledging the night. The unseen consequences, once fully revealed, become the wellspring of insight. You stand poised on the cusp of that breakthrough, if only you dare to step further into the shadows and claim the deeper knowledge they conceal. As public discourse fractures, you watch the spectacle unfold and wonder how people could be so blind. But every superficial remedy only delays the reckoning. The fissures grow. The roots, in desperation, send up malformed shoots, anxiety disorders, addictive behaviors, radical ideologies, all symptoms of a system starved of deep, truthful nourishment. Blindness is too harsh. More accurate is that we're all half blinded by our own subterranean roots. Blocking the light of empathy, one path leads to more advanced distraction, more frantic leaf polishing, more denial. The other beckons you deeper, urging you to map the root system, to trace pain to its source, to name the biases and beliefs that govern your mind, to excavate the moral and emotional debris that blocks the flow of authentic vitality. The descent is perilous loss of cherished illusions, the confrontation with grief and guilt, the terrifying permission to feel fully. But the alternative is a slow, unremarked decay that ends in rupture, an understanding from reaching the higher branches of our shared humanity. Biases like confirmation bias, negativity bias, and in-group bias are not errors. They are survival tools, yet without conscious oversight, they perpetuate stereotypes, entrench divisions, and stoke the fires of outrage. You think you're reasoning freely, but often you're simply following the tracks carved in your mind by ancestral patterns and personal traumas alike. You may believe you've rejected narrow ideals, eschewing diet culture, dismissing consumerism, championing egalitarianism, yet the root structures of comparison and scarcity remain. You measure your life against curated images, your worth against arbitrary benchmarks, and your morality against the loudest voices in the room. When you think you're free, you're still tethered to an unseen design, reacting en masse to stimuli you barely perceive. The color of a logo, the cadence of a political speech, the scent of a new car. These currents propel entire populations toward choices that seem individual, but are in fact choreographed by deep-rooted cultural forces. You believe you are responding to the other person's words. In truth, you're contending with echoes of childhood scoldings, echoes of betrayal, and echoes of love withheld. The patterns feel inevitable, doomed from the start, but it's not fate. It's the blueprint you've never revised, and every longing you've silenced has gone on to sculpt the world you inhabit, brick by unseen brick. In workplaces, teams fracture under the weight of unspoken resentments. A manager's insecurity drives micromanagement. A team member's fear of exposure fuels passive aggression. An organization's public values ring hollow because the leadership has never confronted its own shadow. The result is churn, high turnover, toxic culture, innovation stifled by the fear of being wrong. Beneath every corporate slogan promising authenticity lies a root system of unexamined anxieties and power struggles. Imagine waking on a typical morning. The alarm's shrill cry drags you from sleep before your mind has time to gather itself. As you roll out of bed, you clutch at a narrative that's long been scripted. I am competent. I am in control. Today will be productive. Yet before you've truly registered the words, a flicker of anxiety flares. What if the meeting goes poorly? What if you say something foolish? This tremor at the root springs from an old conviction that your worth hinges on flawless performance. It is not a belief you would hold consciously, perhaps. You've told yourself a kinder story, but deep below, in the network of root memories, the demand for perfection is etched in stone. And so you move through the day with a tremor in your gut, seeking constant reassurance, attributing every setback to personal failure rather than recognizing the deeper script guiding your response. As the hours pass, you believe you're choosing how to feel. You decide to be calm, intentional, generous, but emotions are born at those hidden junctions where root forces converge. Shame triggered by a colleague's offhand remark, envy shimmering beneath admiration when you watch another succeed, resentment twisting gratitude when you're praised for work you feel didn't merit it. These emotional undercurrents pull the strings of your behavior, often unbeknownst to you. You offer small acts of kindness, then wonder why you do not feel uplifted, because at the source, you're paying a toll of guilt, believing you must earn love through relentless giving. You forge bonds of friendship, then bristle at the vulnerability they require, because deep within you associate openness with weakness. Each choice you make appears conscious, yet is seeded by the subterranean soil you've never tended. Consider how this plays out in your relationships. You long for intimacy, yet recoil when someone draws too near. Beyond your personal world, these unseen currents ripple outward. In society at large, the collective roots run even deeper. Neurological science offers chilling confirmation. Your brain is wired to conserve energy by relying on shortcuts, heuristics born of past experience. What if the world you see, the news you consume, the opinions you form, the elections you fight over is not a mirror of objective reality, but a projection of collective root structures? Now, feel the urgency, the ticking clock hidden beneath this labyrinth. You may cling to the illusion that you can tweak the leaves, improve productivity hacks, master better communication, tweak policy reforms while leaving the roots untouched. In this underground realm, you stand at a crossroads. You feel the weight of silent currents tugging at your ankles, whispering that escape is impossible, urging you to retreat. You have traced every unseen strand of fear and shame, felt the weight of collective bias pressing down on your chest, and seen the catastrophic designs your unexamined roots have etched into your life and the world. Now, something within you stirs, a small, fierce ember of defiance. Viktor Frankl taught that suffering, when given meaning, becomes the crucible of human greatness. You need not glorify pain, but you must refuse to let it remain a silent tyrant. Consider Nelson Mandela, who emerged from 27 years of imprisonment, not embittered but with a vision of reconciliation. His captivity excavated the depths of his empathy and steeled his resolve to break the cycle of hatred. Maybe it starts each dawn with 10 minutes of unfiltered journaling, where you let dreams, fears, and forbidden longings pour onto the page without judgment. Or perhaps you schedule weekly shadow walks, where you retreat into nature with one question you dread answering, and you sit until the earth provides its counsel. These rituals may feel awkward, even dangerous at first, because they flag you as a traitor to your former self. The tremor of anxiety becomes less a cry of panic than a signal of opportunity, the signpost pointing toward a root that still needs water. Just as your roots, once twisted into new configurations of fear, they will now reconfigure in fresh patterns of growth. It is the ability to stand amid chaos, to feel your root currents swirling, and to choose direction with clarity. You've shattered old ordinances, repurposed your deepest pain, erected new rituals, forged authentic bonds, and set the groundwork for an ever-evolving self. Ahead lies the culmination of this rebellion, a revelation that will reframe all you have become. But before you ascend to that final truth, take a moment to relish the raw electricity of your revolt, the sweet tension of radical becoming. The sky awaits. But first, your rebellion must transform you from the roots upward. The branches you grow will not be brittle monuments to achievement, but living, breathing expressions of a self that has embraced its totality. You must remain vigilant, continually interrogating your assumptions and extending welcoming arms to new revelations of self. Each breakthrough uncovers another layer of darkness to integrate, another frontier to explore. The journey is without endpoint, but in its endless unfolding lies the essence of true freedom. Social interactions no longer reduced to scripts, but opened into unpredictable dialogues where vulnerability is the currency of connection. In your work, creativity surges because you are no longer blocked by the fear of imperfection. You welcome failure as a collaborator on the road to innovation. Yet over time, they build new neural highways, pathways of courage, curiosity, and connection with your deeper wisdom. Or look to Simone Weil, who immersed herself in a factory line to confront the roots of oppression and emerged with writings that reshaped moral philosophy. Now, you must learn to say no without guilt, to carve out sanctuaries of solitude, and to protect the integrity of your inner life. This is not selfishness. It is the minimal prerequisite for genuine generosity. Only when your roots are safe in fertile ground can your branches bear fruit for others. These rebels did not ascend by evading darkness. They stormed its citadel and returned bearing maps for others. When the memory of betrayal floods your senses, don't duck. Turn to it, examine it, and ask, what truth lies here that I refuse to hear? What virtue is hidden in this scar? Anger becomes raw fuel for assertiveness. Grief becomes the seedbed of compassion. Self-doubt becomes the invitation to humility. Search for souls who choose reckoning over denial, who prize depth over performance, who challenge you to go deeper when you resort to surface-level defenses. These alliances become living mirrors, reflecting both your blind spots and your triumphs. Together, you form a network of renegades, each committed to dismantling the collective illusions that keep us aloft in fragile splendor. Channel the energy inward, transmuting poison into power. This is no longer about merely surviving the abyss. It is about seizing agency, rewriting the subterranean code, and reclaiming the power that has always been yours. The path upward true. Ascent begins with a rebellion against every assumption you have held sacred. First, recognize that transformation demands not a gentle nudge, but a radical rupture. Imagine tearing up the blueprints of old behaviors, burning every script that told you who you must be. This is no sentimental therapy session where you tap your toes to affirmations and sip chamomile tea. This is armed revolt in the trenches of your psyche. It begins with a single act of courage, naming the lie that has governed your life. Speak it aloud. I am defined by my performance. I must hide my rage to be loved. My value is determined by others' approval. Saying these words shatters their covert grip. The lie loses its camouflage and faces the light. Next, adopt the posture of the outraged alchemist. Repurpose your deepest wounds into the source material for liberation. Then, embrace paradox as your guiding principle. In the old regime of your mind, strength meant control. Harmony meant suppression of discord. Growth meant displacement of discomfort. Now recognize that strength lives in vulnerability. Harmony emerges from integrating discord, and growth thrives on discomfort. Make alliances with the parts of you once reviled. Invite shame to tea. Let fear speak its truths, and treat envy like a teacher rather than an enemy. When fear whispers, "You will fail," respond, "I will learn." When shame snarls, "You are unworthy," reply, "I am whole, even fractured." These reframes are not empty platitudes. They are small revolutions, recalibrating your neural pathways to value authenticity over image. Historum offers exemplars of this insurgent spirit. Your rebellion also requires new rituals practices that signal to your psyche that the old order is abolished. Reclamation of power also means establishing unbreakable boundaries. The old you tolerated toxic relationships over the corrosive demands of external expectations because you equated worth with sacrifice. Equally vital is the cultivation of a community that mirrors your newfound ethos. As you enshrine these practices into your life, you will begin to notice subtle shifts. Yet this rebellion is not a destination. It is a perpetual spiral. And freedom, in this sense, is not the absence of limitation but the mastery of your limitation, them into allies rather than adversaries. Pause here, in this insurgent moment. Feel the crackle of possibility beneath your skin. A hush falls over your mind as you stand at the threshold of revelation, the air crackling with anticipation. All the rituals, the ruptures, the rebellions, everything has led to this singular moment. You sense that the final truth you seek is not a concept to be understood, but an experience to be lived. Yet your rational mind, ever the vigilant sentry, demands a formula, a definition to hold on to. It warns, truth must be precise, deliverable, repeatable. It is not the absence of contradiction but the embrace of it. You are at once fragile and indomitable, wounded and whole, mortal and infinite. This is the paradox you resisted, the riddle you struggled to solve, and now you stand drenched in its luminous clarity. Duality itself is the crucible of unity, but you have learned better. The deepest insight arrives unannounced, shattering definitions and leaving language gasping in its wake. Each label falls short because this is living mystery, a phenomenon beyond the reach of neat classifications. Whenever you feel unmoored, return to the tension of paradox. Ask yourself, what depth am I avoiding? What height am I clinging to? But something has profoundly changed. The roots that once looked withered and exposed now glow with an inner light. You understand that darkness is not absence of light, but a realm where light gathers before bursting into brilliance. The branches above, once skeletal, are now lush with possibility. Every leaf, a testament to the trials endured below. To live fully is to abide in the nexus of heaven and hell, to let each reinforce the other, to draw strength from suffering and humility from triumph. You carry it forward into all your days, a living revelation that transforms every moment into an act of altar and an ode to the paradox that is your soul. To be human is to be divine in your capacity to navigate paradox. You step back from the tree, your shadow stretching behind you, your face turned toward the horizon. The precipice is no longer a threat, but an invitation to keep breathing, keep feeling, keep moving in the eternal spiral of growth. Let those questions guide you back into alignment. In moments of doubt, recite silently, "Hell and heaven are one. I am both root and branch." You sense the memory of every storm it weathered, every season it survived, every predator it repelled. You sensed your own story mirrored in its rings years of growth and retreat. of bold expansion and hidden consolidation. And you know that just as this tree stands because it has embraced both sun and shadow, so you stand because you have plunged into the depths and soared toward the light. Feel how the vibration of that truth grounds you and elevates you simultaneously. It is as if you have glimpsed the codex nature uses to write life itself, only to find it is written in paradox and poetry rather than in bullet points and formulas. When shame rises, do not shrink. Let it rise and let it become the breath that expands your heart. When joy swells, do not clutch it. Let it swell and let it carry you into humility. You close your eyes and feel the world humming in resonance with the truth you carry. Every breath is a partnership between gravity and aspiration. Every step you take, from now on, will honor the paradox at your core. There is no longer any fear of depth or height, for you are both. The path behind you and the path ahead are woven into a single spiral that ascends as it descends, descends as it ascends, forever entwined. Where once you sought to secure outcomes and accumulate achievements, you now approach tasks as invitations to explore your own depths. Every challenge is an initiation, every collaboration a dance of converging root currents. Success is redefined not by external measures but by the integrity of your engagement, the fullness with which you show up for the paradox unfolding in each moment. There is no hierarchy of experience. Each sensation, each insight, each sorrow and delight is an equal thread in the tapestry of existence. To live is to participate in this alchemy, to celebrate the full spectrum of being without preference or prejudice. Close your eyes. Feel the pulse at the base of your skull, the beat where mind streaks into body, but a fellow traveler traversing their own abyss to apex arc. Compassion flows not from pity or duty, but from recognition. The same paradox you embody, they embody. Connection becomes deeper than sympathy. It becomes the silent communion of two root systems entwining beneath the soil of circumstance. This is the junction where all your journeys converge, the locus of thought and sensation, of past and present, of light and shadow. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, imagine the walls between these polarities dissolving. The future, instead of a field of anxieties and ambitions, becomes a canvas of possibilities co-created by your deepest intentions. There is no longer a strict progression from point A to point B, but a spiraling movement that carries you ever deeper into the unity of your being. There is no longer you gazing upon truth. There is only the breathing of existence itself. And here, in that sacred stillness, the final realization unfurls. The abyss and the apex are one. Heaven and hell are not opposing realms, but two faces of the same coin. Every fear you unearthed, every sorrow you welcomed, every shame you named has been folded into a single tapestry of resilience. The very patterns that once imprisoned you now serve as conduits for wisdom and compassion. Pain, once your adversary, reveals itself as the midwife of transformation. Triumph, once your idol, recedes into its proper place as a fleeting echo of deeper fulfillment. In that vast interior landscape, every thorn becomes a gateway, every wound a portal to grace. The depth you feared and the height you coveted are inseparable dimensions of your being. To chase heaven without hell is to chase a mirage. To descend into hell without aspiring skyward is to disappear in darkness. The tree that reaches heaven does so precisely because its roots have plumbed the depths of hell. You too are both root and branch, chthonic and celestial in your essence. This truth transcends metaphor. It is the living geometry of your soul. You realize that authenticity is the alignment of every layer of your being, your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses, your historyum, to a coherent field of presence. What does this mean for your life? It means that every moment is both descent and ascent. Under this revelation, relationships transform. You can now look into another's eyes and see not a mirror of your own desires. Your work, too, finds new purpose. Even your understanding of time shifts. The past, instead of a chain of mistakes and regrets, becomes a forest of lessons awaiting integration. At this point, your mind tries to categorize. Is this a spiritual experience? A psychological breakthrough? A philosophical insight? And yet, a gift remains. You carry a practical key. In the final scene of this inner odyssey, you stand once more before that colossal tree at the edge of the precipice. You reach out and place your hand on the trunk. The bark is warm, alive with the pulse of the cosmos. The wind stirs the leaves in a gentle applause, and in that moment, you realize this is not the end of the journey, but its true beginning. Silence follows, But it is not emptiness. It is the resonant chord of truth that lingers after the final word.